It's California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. We are joined by Ben Johnson. He is the president of the Alvord Unified School District. That is a school district in Riverside County. It's basically covering small portions of the city of Riverside as well as
Corona, unincorporated areas, La Sierra, Orlanza,
Right.
are kind of the big communities people think about when they think about Alvord.
So let's talk about Alvord in 2015 and juxtapose it to maybe 2011.
Okay.
How's Alvord doing?
We're financially much better. I mean, we've kind of weathered the storm of the Great Recession, and you know, we're pleased with how much there's been given local controls, been given back to
Right.
local school districts. And so we know that for our students,
Right.
programmatically, putting programs together that will help our students in being creative, some things that we wanted to do before, couldn't do before, can
Right.
do now, has been great for the district.
So I do want to talk about funding because it is undeniable that as we started to come out of the recession, as Prop 30 money started to kick in, Governor Brown made K-12 his #1 priority.
Right.
I mean, just without a doubt, all the increases, I may be a bit hyperbolic, but for argument's sake, all the increases
Absolutely.
were going to K-12. This year, again, a 3% bump to K-12. And I think it's starting to ruffle the feathers of some of the other educational stakeholders. The UC system, maybe the CSU system, community colleges. Give me your take on this.
Well, absolutely. I mean, he's even said we don't want to even raise the tuition for our students because it's an undue burden. And so, but we know that the foundation to get our students into Cal States and to get them into UC starts at the K-12 level. And quite frankly, probably even starts at preschool. If the foundation isn't there, they're never going to progress.
And for argument's sake, let me just take the opposite position. Absolutely, you're right. At the same time, the restorations for K-12 are almost complete. You're not quite at 2007 levels,
No.
but you're almost there.
Right.
The restorations for community colleges, CSU, and UC,
Lagging.
they're not complete.
Right.
They're not even close to complete. So is it time, and I know I'm asking you to speak against your
No,
interests,
not at all.
but is it time to start to reevaluate?
Well, I'm going to date myself,
Right.
but I graduated from a UC school. I graduated from UC Irvine, and great academic experience, and my tuition, I think, was $400.
Yeah, I remember
semester.
those days. I actually went to USC. We're around the same age, and in the mid-'80s we were in college.
Yes.
And I remember we were paying $5,500 a semester, which
Right.
was just exorbitantly expensive, whereas our friends at UCLA were paying about $500 a semester.
Correct.
You know, today our friends at UCLA are paying, I guess would be $6,000 a semester, $12,000 a year.
Right.
Yeah, $12,000 a year. And so, but sir, in some ways, and now I'm going back, it's kind of a bargain. $12,000 for UC, $6,000 for CSU.
I still think it needs to get better. A lot of students are leaving the state. Our brain trusts are leaving the states, and quite frankly, private schools are giving money that the Cal State and CUS can, so people can go to a private school for $25,000 a year, the same thing it costs to go to a UC school.
It is fascinating that you say that, because I have learned that the sticker shock for private schools can be quite jaunting, but their financial aid programs are so much more generous that one could actually wind up at an outstanding private school and pay less than if they didn't get any scholarships at UC.
And especially because it's less competitive for sports or for the arts, and those students get involved. I mean, I have 4 daughters.
Oh, yes, you do.
So
and all around college age?
And 2 in college age, and one's
they're on their way?
Elementary school.
Yeah.
And so we look at that, and 2 of them are going to RCCD because they know that they can save some money and then transfer to the Cal State system.
So what now? Because look, we look at the battle royale between Governor Jerry Brown and UC Chancellor Janet Napolitano. I think they're trying to make nice, but in the final analysis, there's a pot of gold at the end, and that's not infinite. And even though the governor is prudent, you know, if you take from Peter, you're going to have to somehow get it from Paul. And so if money is given to the UC system beyond what Governor Brown has asked for today, does it come from K-12? I mean,
well, it may need to come from somewhere else. I mean, when I think about prioritizing, though, education should be our priority, whether it's K-12, whether it's the UC system, whether it's Cal States and our community colleges. So that should be the priority. And there's a great billboard out there that talks what the cost is for schools and what the cost is for prisons. Yeah. And so that kind of argument.
And a few years ago, if this was 2011, I believe our prison budget around that time was greater than our education budget.
Right.
At least for higher education, I believe.
Right.
And now it's flipped a little bit, so, so we're in a better place. But are you concerned, though, about the tenor of the conversation? Or do you think it's just kind of par for the course?
Well, I mean, even at the K-12 level, we're still talking about the reserve cap and the fact that we talk about all these issues of local control, and
we need to talk about the reserve cap, if we may.
Yeah.
It's a little inside baseball, but I think it's so important because there isn't a school board member in which I interviewed that does not mention the reserve cap. And if I can just briefly explain it, I mean, last summer there was a provision put into the budget, a little bit of a surprise, I think. You know, am I right? I mean, we knew that the rainy day fund was likely to pass through Proposition 2, but it essentially preclude school districts from squirreling aside more money in years that the rainy day fund is triggered, which in some ways seems counterintuitive.
It helped every district that I can think of deal with the Great Recession when we didn't have money to be able to say we can take money from our reserves. And so the argument has been about these large districts and these large reserves, but I think it's about 40% of districts in California have 1,000 or less students. And so they're really smaller districts, and one major event would decimate that reserve.
But your bargaining partners would say, you know, if there is cash, we shouldn't squirrel it away. We should be providing bonuses or higher salaries or professional development, and you know, squirreling away 5% is just too much. You need to squirrel away 1% or whatever it is.
I guess I'm lucky. Our associations get it. I mean, I think 5%, because, you know, you have to have at least 3, and having 10 may be ridiculous, but I think having 3 is the bare minimum. So to me, to have 5 or 6, to have that cushion there, I think is reasonable.
But as we speak today, that provision is still on the books.
It is.
I've spoken with many folks on school boards. I've spoken with President-elect Chris Unger of the CSBA, California School Boards Association. He and others have said that they want it removed. I mean, this is priority number 1, it seems, for
really
the CSBA, for folks. I guess you're with the RSBA as a leader.
Riverside County School Boards, and also delegate for CSBA as well.
And so what now? Where do you go on this question? Because you know, I could make the argument it seems counterintuitive when you look at the Governor Brown philosophy, the Governor Brown doctrine.
Absolutely correct, local control.
You know, he did put it in, and he has stuck behind it.
I think it's really educating him that the intent is not for people to cheat our students, first of all, with programs, or to cheat our employees. The issue is we want to make sure we have dollars there when bad things could happen, and that should be our decision as local control, and let us deal with that at a local level with our associations, because if the associations think we're squirreling away too much money, they'll be darn sure to tell us to that we are. And if you don't have that dialogue with your associations, well, then shame on you as board members. I
want to ask you about Prop 30, which has been a godsend for K-12. Governor Brown has indicated he, at this stage, is not supportive of extending it. It's expiring in a couple of years. I heard a poll recently where the public actually would support an extension. It's early, but what's your sense of Prop 30 and the extension on the sales tax element?
I think if people see that those dollars are being spent the way, because typically what we see is lottery money or whatever it is, the money's allocated or supposedly allocated and something is switched, and it doesn't go for the students. If they see us using our local control dollars, the way they're supposed to be used, and we're spending it for children, and we're making changes, and they're seeing not just test scores go up, but the learning and deep thinking, I think they will extend it. If they don't see any change and we're still, as California, ranked at the bottom, then I think people will not support it.
So
nor should they.
Will the CSBA look to have an extension put on the ballot? Because right now, again, we're a couple of years out, but is this a priority?
I know legislative, we've talked about it. We haven't said what that would look like, but it would make sense to me to ask for an extension if those dollars are being.
His name is Ben Johnson. He is the president of the Alvord Unified School Board. My name is Brad Pomerance, and you're watching California Edition.
Thank you.